It's time for bookkeeping, beer, and BS. I want to set the stage on one thing because I think it's important to talk about where you are in your business to make those decisions. When we started the conversation, it was you with a few dudes and you're doing, a few $100,000 in revenue and you're mostly doing drain cleaning. To fast forward to today, you've got a team built out, you've got a general manager, you've got a couple people in the office, you got a salesperson. Do you have two salespeople or is David just kind of all sales?
I have two.
Two salespeople. Are you comfortable talking like numerically where you're at? I don't want to
Yeah. So to be clear, one thing I like to talk about is, the $5,000 number when me and Emily saw that was amazing. And then about a year after that, there was a point where there was like $20,000 in the business bank account, and it was the coolest thing in the world. And like those two feelings were like milestones to us. And some of the funnest feelings that I've had in the business, where it just felt like I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing this, and now I pretty much doubled in revenue every year, except for the last couple of years, maybe not quite doubled. But right now, I think
it's hard to keep a percentage-based pace when you're talking millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's one thing to double a $300,000 business. It's another thing to double a $2 million business.
Yeah.
Dollars mean more than percentages as you're growing.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year we'll probably finish right around 3 million this year. Is probably what we expect. Last year we did like 2.4 or 2 or I don't know in revenue. We do pretty well with a profit margin.
I will say, because I've looked at your books, for now, thank God you have Emily. No offense to you, but thank God you have Emily. For a business owner that admittedly is not financially obsessed, you do amazingly well for your margin. Most business owners that lack frugality and are not financially obsessed fucking burn their money. They just burn it. Right? Because it's there's always something new to buy. There's always a new thing to justify, and they spend all of their money. Now, you do love to spend your money. I'm not denying that, but you also have it priced right. You have the business model figured out. And actually, I'll lay this out because this was me coming in from an outside perspective of we met in Nashville. You and I and Emily were at the same table. We talked. We became buddies. We did some bow hunting. You knew I was a finance nerd, and we had mutual friends. And so came in and looked at your books, and we started breaking things out into the buckets of where they should fall.
Yeah.
How to organize things. And Emily was already doing a really good job isolating stuff, but we were able to put it into groups. And when we grouped it up, it was you guys didn't know this, but you're spending the right amount of money on all the different decisions you're making, which is super rare, super rare for people trying to scale businesses. Usually they're spending too much in the field and their pricing sucks, or their efficiency is terrible, or they're spending too much on marketing. It doesn't convert. They're spending too much on the office team who is busy doing things that don't add value, whatever it is.
Don't add revenue. They add value. They don't add revenue.
Yeah, that was one thing that struck out to me is we dove into your P&L and we broke it down into different buckets of decisions, and it was damn, you have a knack, you have a good gut.
Pretty early on, I got a spreadsheet that's close to the ones that you give out. I mean, you've seen that one, and it helped me kind of set up some pricing, and that did help. And then also one thing that you really talk about that I think is interesting is the new shiny tool thing, right? And I've gone down that road with different things, and there's been things that sit on shelves, and then I've gone the opposite where it's no, I don't. Somebody a long time ago, who not how?
I gotta get back to a BBB. I haven't been there in a year.
Trevor even said he misses it, and we're maybe we should just join again.
I'll go if you go.
I'm not getting the same fix that I was getting from this new group, and I think I'm about done. But somebody a long time ago, and I read and listen to podcasts, and and watch YouTube videos and all this stuff about business stuff, and I try to learn.
I thought you were about to start talking about bow hunting, but okay, we're still talking about business.
I'm also doing that. I learned all this stuff, and somebody a long time ago talked about like the whole who not how thing, that like new tools can't get you freedom or more revenue all the time. And and in my industry, there's a lot of cool tools that do a lot of stuff. And it's like, are you still doing that bit? Who not how? Who's that?
Ryan Lee from Landscape Lighting Secrets.
Yeah, man, it's never gonna die. Who not how? But I learned back then that, like, and you could see it, right? You think, oh, I'm gonna go buy this directional bore machine, right? Which bores under the ground and can do some weird shit and stuff. And we came close to buying it.
That? Why would you buy that? That sounds badass.
It's super badass. But then I was like, I ain't got a guy to run this thing. I don't want to run it. I'm sick of running stuff. I'm running all these other things, and so that was one of the kind of key points. And I started really realizing that, like, tools don't get you. You got to just have the right amount of tools. Like we just bought a new van yesterday, which is going to be great. Because me and Dan are going to take that huge empty thing to Illinois, and we're going to
test it out on our way to Illinois and make sure it runs.
I'm going to try to convince Marvel Sewer and Drain to buy a new van every rut. But
we'll take it for a test drive, an extended test drive.
An extended test drive to Illinois and back.
We're going to make sure we break it in, because you don't want to have some weird happen right away from
it's safety. It's for safety.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And so, like, we've had times where there's been too many vans sitting in the garage, but because we haven't been able to hire, and vice versa, and so, like, the shiny tools that you got to be really careful about. Just remember that, like, when you're little, you can justify spending 20 grand on a stupid tool that you think is going to make your life better, but you can't justify hiring somebody. And it's like, dude, that 20 grand could have paid that person for a couple months.
Yeah, the dude is the thing that makes the money.
Yeah, he's the one that makes it so you don't hate your business and hate your life and hate your wife and everything you're doing because you're stressed out, and like, you got to stop buying stupid shit and just hire people and invest in those people.
I think there is a point of, like, you need the right tools.
Yep.
But the right tools are only useful in the right hands.
Yep.
And you can't scale a business with the right tools. You can only scale a business with the right people. The tools come second. Like, first comes the right people, then comes the marketing to get the right customers, and then comes the tool for the dude to serve the person. And so many people get distracted with, like, the sexy things. And Angela and I were talking about this on Turfs Up Radio today too, which is, you've got this, like, overhead expense, right, to overcome. And if you buy a bunch of assets that are sitting idle and not making you money, it's just a bunch of dead weight.
Then they're not called assets, they're called liabilities.
That's a good point. Look at you, bookkeeping nerd. Look at you talking about the balance sheet, and you hate the balance sheet. That's incredible.
Balance sheet. Yeah.